This is the Art Beauty Podcast where we tell the real truth about the fake shit. Hi, everybody. I'm Amber, and today my fabulous and gorgeous co-host is Dawn Fable. She is the founder of Press Pause, which is really a CBD company that is aimed to help women at every stage and phase of their life, of their day. She's really making incredible movements in this space and has an amazing story that she's going to share with us today. Dawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And thank you for what you're doing. And I'm so humbled to be in your company. So thank you for allowing me to share my story. It's been perhaps the most rewarding journey along this way, is just meeting really inspiring women and making a difference.
So for a little background, I met Dawn through, we met through a press event for your line. And one of the things that really captured me was what caused you to create this. I was so moved by that. And I hope that in this podcast today, that there are women out there, you know, anxiety and mental health right now are finally something that's being talked about, but yet I know from my own personal experiences, talking to my girlfriends, talking to other women, it's something that is still sort of a little bit taboo and that we don't quite know how to handle. I would love it if you don't mind, and thank you for being so generous with your story. Can you tell us a little bit about, you know, your struggles or your battle against generalized anxiety disorder? When were you diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder?
Of course. And thank you. It's such an important topic. I think, I'm certainly not alone in the millions of women that struggle with mental health, anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, but I'm one that feels like I was given a tremendous gift to share my story. And through that, I've been able to curate an amazing line of products and be a platform to really share my very true, relatable, and raw story to other women to make them feel perhaps like they're not so alone. I think, like many of us, I had always struggled with anxiety in some form or fashion. But like so many of us women, we sort of try to push it under the rug and can't be inconvenienced by it, and tend to just continue to go through life with, grit and grace. It wasn't until I was in college that I was formally diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. And like so many of us who are in these shoes, physicians these days are so quick to just diagnose. And that's when, SSRIs and antidepressants were really in their glory. And I was, of course, put on Lexapro and Xanax and all of those things. And for many years, all throughout college and into a young adult, I was taking that medication, and it certainly was helping. It wasn't until I started to have children in my mid-30s and after the birth of my third child that really my anxiety had become truly debilitating. So much so where after the birth of my third child, in what should have been the most beautiful months of my life, I really found myself not being able to be present with my two older children or my newborn at that point. So I went back on prescription medication, and there were side effects that came along with that. And, I had no sex drive. I couldn't cry. I was gaining weight, and I was just really disenchanted by the process. So interestingly, I was introduced to CBD, which was before CBD was even a thing. I had no idea what it was. I thought it was cannabis, like so many other people. And I was so desperate for a solution outside of prescription medication that I thought, what the hell, I'm going to start trying this. And
wait, I'm going to stop you. Wait, before we get into the CBD journey, because we know that this is something that you are not only passionate about, but you built a brand on. Do you mind if I don't mean to interrupt you, but talking a little bit about, you said you had debilitating anxiety. And I find that anxiety is one of those things that has become maybe more in the cultural vernacular, right? That it's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling so anxious. But I think that there is a difference between, I hate to say normal, that's not the word, but like, a person who doesn't have really serious anxiety issues, having some stress in your life, right? You're going to have times. But what was it like for you? Somebody, who really was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. What were some of the things that you were feeling? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, that's an amazing question because I think all of us as a society are anxious.
Yeah.
But when you truly have, generalized anxiety disorder, it becomes debilitating in ways that my thoughts were so consuming, and everything became such a catastrophic process in my head of just spiraling thoughts out of control. I really wasn't able to be present in my current life, whether that was professionally or in relationships or with my children. I found myself in my head all of the time. And those thoughts of, what may or may not happen to my child, what may or may not happen to me, having a stomach pain, worrying about the future and not really being able to be present in that moment. And when that happens, I'm sure many of you know this, you can't be engaged in your daily life. You can pretend, and I did a really great job of pretending like I was listening to people and enjoying my children and their first steps and things like that. But I was so in my head.
Do you find that people maybe didn't really understand? Like I guess it took me till about 40 to really understand that there are so many different differences between people. And I know that sounds so silly, but I've got a friend with serious anxiety, and in my 20s and 30s, you say, come on, just pull yourself together and don't let yourself think like this. And that was so naive of me, which
Mhm.
I now realize and now can approach everything that all of my conversations with her differently, because I realize that it's not the same way that I handle things.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, those of us who struggle with anxiety have a really unhealthy relationship with it.
Yeah.
My therapist recently told me to write sort of a breakup letter to anxiety because we become so accustomed to what our life looks like with anxiety. And we really don't even know what life could look like without it.
Yeah.
And so, especially for us women who, tend to try to control things in our lives just because we're so busy and have so many responsibilities and families and professions and, all of these things, anxiety is very much related to control as well. And so being able to relinquish that control of not having control over the outcomes is a difficult thing to do. And you sort of have to reprogram your brain in doing so.
Now, you mentioned that, this started when you were in college, and I feel like the landscape around mental health was very different then. I know that I lost two friends in college, and my grandmother passed away all within the same year. And so I was diagnosed with depression. I also was put on SSRIs and took Wellbutrin for years, and then realized, what? Of course I was depressed. I had, massive life
Yeah.
occasions. And so for me, I've gone off it. I've gone back on it at times. I think that having the medication there is a wonderful tool in your toolbox. But I also think that having a support system is equally as important. Did you find that you had that, sort of growing up and now, with your friends, with your family?
I'm so fortunate to have an amazing support system. I was raised by an extraordinary mother. I have a really close sister who's one of my, very best friends. And then I think I've been really fortunate to be aligned with women who express their vulnerabilities. And so you don't feel alone. In fact, Press Pause, the namesake of our brand in itself, comes from a very, very special place. And that is, 10 of my closest girlfriends and I had gathered for a series of evenings that was very similar to that of a book club, which of course we all love those. It's an excuse to see our friends and drink copious amounts of wine and essentially escape reality, or partners or children or whatever. And one of my girlfriends had suggested that instead of reading a book, we were to do this thing called a one little word club. And each of us were to choose a word that we really wanted more of in our lives. And we wanted to hold one another accountable for it. And it was such a beautiful collision of sort of vulnerability, in that as we went around the room that evening, despite all of our social media profiles looking like our lives were perfectly curated, as we went around the room that evening, it became abundantly clear that we were all really struggling, whether it was, with health issues amongst ourselves, or issues with our children, or, issues with relationships, or seeing our parents age, whatever it was. Yet that struggle was so silent.
Yeah.
And we as women were doing it all, and we were doing it so gracefully, and to outsiders, we were absolutely crushing life. But for one woman, her word was pause. And she said, I just wish I could tattoo the pause button on my wrist, and it would be a reminder to us as women to give ourselves permission to press pause. And that's essentially when the Press Pause Project was born. And it's so much more than just a line of wellness products. It's really served as sort of a platform and movement to discuss some of those stigmatized topics, and to be vulnerable, and to, share what we're going through as women, so we can be more relatable and we're not feeling so alone. And I think, through the pandemic and things like that, we gotta blink of that, what that could look like. But then we're so quick as a society to go back into everything and suppress all of that. And so I hope that just in sharing our story and sort of sharing the mantra of press pause, that's just a simple reminder to women to take care of yourself.
Well, and listen, right before this, we heard from a woman who we won't mention, but who got sick, and another very I want to say always on top of her game woman got so sick that she was actually hospitalized, and was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have scheduled it because I hated to miss X, Y, and Z meeting. And I said, wow, that is how so many people are feeling, right? Whether you are a stay-at-home mom, which is an incredibly difficult job, to working a Fortune 500, it doesn't matter. We all have these pressures that we put on ourselves to, like you said, be a good mother, be a good wife, be a good friend, be a good daughter, be good at our jobs. And sometimes we need that reminder. And I'm so grateful for this, because I just want this episode to just serve as a reminder to people, like, give yourself a break. Give yourself a break. So now let's talk about CBD, because how you started to say somebody said to try this. So tell us about your first experiences with CBD.
Oh my gosh, this industry is just like the wild, wild west. It's
It
so
sure
crazy.
is.
I was at the gas station the other day. Oh, and then I went to Denver Shoe Warehouse, or Designer Shoe Warehouse, and there was CBD there. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere now.
It's crazy. And it's a problematic industry because it's not very regulated. But
Right.
so this was back in early 2018, when there wasn't a lot of awareness about CBD, and there were very few providers that you actually knew that you were getting a quality product. So fortunately, I was turned on to one of those, and I started incorporating CBD into my everyday life. And I was very skeptical. I think that there's been so many outrageous claims and these promising sort of supplements, especially in the nutraceutical and wellness space, that are all a big marketing ploy. But I started incorporating CBD into my life, and over time, I really started to notice a difference. And again, being very skeptical, I gave it to my sister and my mom and my husband, who struggles with an autoimmune disease, and we all started noticing a difference. And CBD is one of those things that, the profound difference is most noticed when you stop taking it.
I had a friend who told me, so when this all came out, I had a friend, it's funny because Denver, I feel like has been, the first to sort of decriminalize marijuana, then legalize it. I know psilocybin, other things that we're going to be talking more about next week are really Denver's kind of on the forefront of like, hey, we know that this sort of plant-based medicine has some really wonderful qualities. We're going to kind of let it ride. But you're right. There was a lot of, I remember just like you said, it was about 2-3 years ago, CBD, what? And it was so confusing. So when you were taking it, what, how did you start taking it? Was it like a tincture? Was it, a
Yes, I
bomb?
started with just a tincture, and I think that's a really great entry point for, people who haven't had experience with it, because you can dose it up and you can dose it down. And unlike our crazy society that, has built in this belief system is more is more is more, sometimes with CBD, less is more. And every person's biochemical makeup is very different. And so finding sort of that right dosage for you and what really works with your lifestyle and other supplements or medications that you might be taking. So yeah, so I started with the tincture and I sort of found the sweet spot for me. And it was really over time that I started noticing some pretty subtle differences just in terms of, things rolling off my shoulders a little bit easier, or me not catastrophizing, or things that would have rattled me, before, just weren't really bothersome. My husband says that CBD makes me a nicer person. I think I was yelling at our kids less. But it's funny because it wasn't until, and this moment is so clear to me, it wasn't until probably about a year after I had been taking CBD consistently that I was hosting a myriad of family and friends over for Thanksgiving. I mean, there had to be 20 people there.
I,
And prior to my love affair with CBD, I would have been an absolute basket case. I would have been yelling at everyone, making sure that all of the place settings were correct, like rage vacuuming, doing all of those things. And this experience was a little bit different in preparing for Thanksgiving. And it wasn't until we went to serve dessert and I recognized that I didn't have enough of my nice china for dessert. And
I,
I served Thanksgiving pie on 4th of July paper plates, and I could have given two shits less.
oh my God, I love you. First of all, when I went to get married, they were like, look at the china. And I was like, no, I don't need china. And the
No.
woman was like, you need china. I was like, unless you're going to come over and hand wash the dishes afterwards, like I'll just take Corelle,
Yeah,
which is like,
totally.
cheap, throw it in the dishwasher. You can't break it. I was like, God bless, but God bless with you, China. And listen, I think so many women out there probably really get that. Oh my God, I don't have the nice china for this. But I do have these July 4th paper plates. I love that you're sharing because I think it is something that is so relatable to so many of us. And you mentioned, did you ever stop? Because I realized I didn't finish that story. I asked a friend about CBD and he said, I didn't really notice so much of a difference when I was on it, but when I stopped taking it, I noticed for him, it was a knee problem. He's like, my knee really hurt again.
Totally. And I
Yeah.
think that's what most people experience. And I did, because I experimented around with stopping, starting, I was trying different products to, make sure that we were really doing the research and development that was needed. And that I was speaking openly and transparently about my experiences in every regard. And I noticed a big difference when I stopped. I noticed a difference in my inflammation. I have a gastro autoimmune
Mm-hmm.
that would rear its ugly head when I wasn't consistent. And that's frankly one of the most beneficial properties of CBD and the terpenes that come along with it and other cannabinoids is reduction of inflammation. I noticed a difference in my sleep. I was able to fall asleep, but not stay asleep. And frankly, I noticed a difference in me just being very um, rattled, getting in my mind again, and things just being, more of a big deal. I was snapping. I was, so yeah. And, my mom takes it and several friends take it, for arthritis or for autoimmunes and things, and they can really tell a huge difference. And oftentimes it's sort of a learning experience for people where they're like, I am never getting off this CBD again.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's so substantial. Um,
Do you think it's interesting because it is sort of this like panacea, right? It's a cure all, if you will. Do you think people have like certain misconceptions about CBD that are sort of prevalent?
Yeah, and I think it's the industry's fault. Sadly, there's a lot of bad guys who are in this industry, and it's a very non-regulated industry. And so I think there's been, companies or assumptions out there that, making these outrageous claims or CBD is the cure-all, and that's not the case by any means. The way in which CBD or any cannabinoid works within our body is it takes time for those cannabinoids to attach to what's called a CB1 and CB2 receptor, very much like our immune system. And so what happens is over time, once your endocannabinoid system is a little bit more balanced, then you sort of are able to experience optimal health where your pain signals aren't firing so crazy, which is why people use it for chronic pain, or your neurotransmitters aren't out of whack, which is why it's so beneficial for, anxiety and sort of mental health, or, perhaps your inflammation is down, which is why it's very beneficial for autoimmune. So, each person is very different, but I think we as Americans in particular are looking for a quick fix.
Right.
And people who say that they experience immediate benefits with CBD, I think oftentimes that's a placebo.
Okay.
Because from a medical standpoint, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a doctor, nor smart enough to be one, but it really does take time to build up within our bodies and sort of help regulate that endocannabinoid system.
So when you say time, and again, you've really made it clear that every body is different. But what sorts of timelines are we looking at if we were to start taking CBD as a tincture or maybe using it as a cream?
Yeah, I think, again, everyone's different. I mean, some people notice it very quickly, particularly with like a sleep tincture, because that does have melatonin and it has another cannabinoid called CBN in there, which is a sedative. So you could take that and notice a significant improvement in your sleep. I think with your overall sort of CBD as a wellness, if you're taking a capsule or a tincture or things like that, I think it would be safe to say, about 30 days.
Okay.
Start noticing that and really, get it working within your system. The topicals obviously will provide more immediate relief. And our teas, which are fantastic because they're water soluble, we happen to just the delivery system provides a quicker efficacy with that. Our intimacy spray, which is a total fan favorite, you will notice those wonderful sensations right away. So, but I think, CBD as an industry, if you're taking it as a wellness sort of supplement interchangeably with your vitamins or complementary with your vitamins, you really need to give it a longer period of time.
I'm just laughing at myself because I keep here. So I have here the Glow, which is a full spectrum CBD capsule. And you can see here, it's pretty empty. But I was leaving them on my desk and kind of taking it when I was having a stressful moment.
Yeah.
And maybe it was a placebo because I feel like I definitely felt a little bit of like in
Some
about
people
30
do.
minutes.
Mhm.
But really maybe the better way that I should be taking is just one every day.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, not to say that you might not be feeling those immediate effects, because some people do and they're very sensitive, but in
Yeah.
order to get the full sort of, outcome of what you're looking for, benefits just with inflammation and overall wellness and things like that, it really should be very ritualistic in nature, and daily.
And daily. So is this something, and I hope I'm not prying too much, but is this something that you continue to now just sort of everyday CBD as a part of your routine?
Yeah, I pour CBD on my life. I mean, I've got like 3 kids. It's a beautiful disaster. I'm working full time. We're just trying to survive and thrive in the everyday, sort of navigate through this beautiful disaster of life, as I like to call it. But yeah, and Press Pause is great because, we've been very mindful in the formulations to meet a woman's day every
Yeah.
day, from waking up and having perhaps, a CBD tea as an alternative to coffee, and then going to your workout and using some of our topicals, to then having our balance tincture, to then using our sleep product at night. If you want to have sexy time, you can incorporate some of our intimacy spray. So it's designed and used to be interchangeable.
Yeah.
So you can mix and match and sort of do all of those things. But it's not only designed, to meet a woman's everyday, but our product evolution, and thank you to our incredible parent company and our product innovator, is designed to really meet the woman's needs throughout her life cycle as well. So there's a lot of really advantageous ingredients for perimenopause and sort of hormonal wellness and sexual wellness. So really, as a company, we're defining ourselves amongst 4 pillars. And I think as a middle-aged woman, we've been ignored for a long period of
Yep.
time,
Mm-hmm.
from just the health and wellness and beauty space as a whole. And we want to create this beautiful line and movement and community that caters to those 4 pillars of the middle-aged woman. And those are hormonal wellness. I mean, I'm 44 years old and batshit crazy, going through sort of perimenopause and, dealing with some of those things. Then, of course, we have your mental and cognitive wellness. And I emphasize cognitive because there's a lot of brain fog and sort of burnout and things that go along with that. Then we have our sexual wellness. I don't know about you, but I'm not running to my bedroom every night to
No. And
be
thank you for
intimate with
saying
my
it. You know
husband.
what? And I'm going to stop you there because I am 43 in like 2 weeks. And it's funny because I was trying to remember something the other day and I couldn't. And then I remembered I did a podcast with somebody who was like, perimenopause, brain fog is real. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, do I have dementia? Like, is this starting now? Talk about anxiety. But these are things again, and sex,
Yeah.
I've been married for 13 years. God bless. I love my husband. There is so much love, but like, it's not always like
Not on the
running. I like,
forefront of your mind, right?
and I don't even have kids to blame.
Yeah. Well,
So I was just saying for all the women out there, it's okay. And sometimes it goes in phases,
yeah.
right?
And
Sometimes
sometimes
it's
we just need like a little jump start. And I think,
yeah.
that's where our intimacy product comes in is, there's a mind body connection there. And I think, you put a little bit of that on and spray it in sort of your nether regions, and it connects with your mind like, ooh, this feels good. And then it sort of gets you into the mindset of that.
I will say on the
Yeah.
sexual thing, I always try to tell my girlfriends, like, because I talk to some friends who are very sexually active and some who have been married and they're like, I just am not into it. I'm like, sometimes you just need to do it because I want to be careful with my words here, for consensual
Yeah.
sex between
Yeah.
2 people with somebody that you love and trust and want to do it with, even if you're not really wanting to do it. I find that nobody's ever been like, God, I wish I didn't do that afterwards. Right. It's like going to the
It's
gym.
always
Sometimes I'm
good
like,
while
you
it's
just force
happening.
yourself to do it because you're going to be happy you did after.
Yeah, totally. Totally. That's so perfectly stated. And I think that we're all sort of in that boat, right? Once it's
Sure.
happening, it's great. It's just getting to that place,
Point.
setting your phone down and stop, scrolling Instagram and
Yeah.
doing all those things. But yeah, and I think, with women too, particularly as we age, there are a lot of side
Changes.
effects that are happening with perimenopause. And so we're trying to address all of those, but we're trying to address them in a, playful and honest and cheeky way with a greater purpose.
Coming up with a lube.
So it's not essentially a lube, it's an intimacy spray. So the intended purpose is to just spray it
This
down
spray, but I'm
there.
saying, are you coming up with a lube? Do it.
We're actually coming up with a fascinating product, again, focused towards that middle-aged woman. It's a vaginal insert.
Okay.
And that is a fantastic product. So look out for that, but that'll do all sorts of wonders too.
Early on, and then I realized I didn't let you get to the fourth pillar, but I did, gosh, it was so many episodes ago. We had another wonderful founder on, and she was like, one of her favorite ways to take CBD was as a suppository because it was the
Yeah.
fastest,
Mhm.
absorption. So I love this idea of an insert. I really do.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating technology and it's so cool. So
Oh, I can't wait. Okay.
stay tuned for that. And then we're coming up with some nootropic drink powders to really, help with cognitive functioning. And you'll constantly see an evolution in our products. I think, something that this industry really ignores the importance of is some of the other cannabinoids, right? Like the minor cannabinoids that aren't, it's like the ugly stepsister, if you will, like a CBN or CBD or, CBDA. And with technology and innovation, these cannabinoids are really being studied and found to be really truly effective in a lot of different things. So you'll find a lot of emphasis on some of the minor cannabinoids with our product. You'll find some products without CBD in the future. And then you'll find a lot of our products are really incorporate what's called terpenes,
Right.
which are sort of the scent profile, but have an intended purpose of, do you want to be creative? Do you want to be sexual? Do you need to sleep? Do you need to be productive? And so throughout the myriad of our products, we've incorporated terpenes and some of those minor cannabinoids in them too, which is very cool.
And I do want to shout out that next week we are going to be talking to Kendra from Tenacious Labs, who is sort of your parent company, one of your product developers. And we're going to really get into the science of terpenes, of some of these other cannabinoids. So don't think I'm leaving you home for all those people who really want the science behind it. We'll be addressing that next week. I realize I cut you off and I'm sorry. I got excited about sex. For the fourth.
Yeah, where's your husband?
For the fourth, he's at work. For the fourth pillar of your company.
The fourth pillar is physical wellness. So, again, I'm 44. It seems like I sneeze and throw out my back. I like in playing tennis and all of a sudden I can't move my elbow. And so it's just really great topical products that
we love Soothe in my house. So Soothe is a wonderful, because my husband plays baseball and I like to work out, and Soothe is a wonderful, wonderful product. It's like,
fun fact, it's actually heat and steam activated. So if you put it on the back of your neck before you do a workout or even get in the shower or something, it's amazing. So try that out.
And I know that we are sort of pressed for time because you have a hard stop today. But before we go, and I know this is like asking you to make Sophie's choice here, but are there certain products that are your favorite, or that if there's a woman out there, maybe a mother like yourself, or just people with anxiety, or that you might push them to try as an intro to your brand?
Oh gosh,
I know,
that's so
sorry.
hard. I go through sort of stages, right? If I'm like having a dry spell in the bedroom, I suppose that the intimacy spray would be one of my favorites. But I think if you're looking for just overall balance or wellness, to help with inflammation that so many of us are struggling with, I would go with one of either our balance tincture or our capsules.
Okay.
For the newbie, the tincture might be a little bit better because you can find that dose that's right for you. Our bath salts are awesome.
I'm so sad because I don't have a bath, but I am, I'm not giving up. Like, sometimes I'll just give stuff. This one I'm hanging on to because when I take a vacation and there's a bathtub, I'm going to bring this with me.
Totally.
And really
Or like
have a vacation.
like a foot soak or something.
I mean,
I know.
It sounds nice, but like,
yeah,
I live in 800 square feet. No.
Wherever you're living.
I don't even have a bathtub. I have a shower.
Yeah.
Yeah. But good,
Yeah, I
but
don't
good
know.
idea. There's a foot soak. That would be great.
Mhm.
Now, for people who want to know more, first of all, I want to thank you so much for being on today. I love your story. I love this energy. I love that you are really helping to empower women in every stage of their day and life, and helping to take some of the stigma away from those of us who feel like no matter how much we give and how much we do, it's never enough.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because it's people like you who allow us to tell our story and to get it out to the masses. So we're equally as grateful. My mom always says, it's important to lead with a grateful heart. And today my heart is very grateful for having this opportunity to chat with you. And you're amazing and beautiful and cool. And ditto, sister, all the
Thank
same energy.
Thank you, Mama. I really appreciate that. For people who are interested in learning more about this brand, if they want to go and purchase the products, where can they go?
Yeah, so go to our website, presspauseproject.com. Our Instagram account, Press Pause Project, also has fantastic educational content. We have a tremendous amount of resources outside of CBD on our website, on our Knowledge Hub, and we try to keep things real. So every once in a while, you'll see some pretty cheeky, humorous, and a bit fueled with personality. Oftentimes that's coming from me.
Love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Dawn, thank you so much. If you have any questions you want me to pass on to Dawn or her team about any of the products or CBD, I'm always happy to do so. You can email me at hello@artbeautypodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Art Beauty Podcast. And I want to remind you that next week, we will be featuring Kendra from Tenacious Labs, really talking about the science behind CBD, talking about some of these new cannabinoids or ones that you might not have heard of, talking about terpenes, which I'd never heard of. So if you're really into that, I hope you'll join us again next week. And thank you again, Dawn. And as always, everybody, we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.
Thank you.